For an entire World Cup, FIFA somehow always found a way to look the other way when it came to Argentina. A soft whistle here, a vanished red card there, and a gushing private letter praising their professionalism while the rest of the world screamed in outrage. Every single time Argentina crossed a line, a protective hand came down over their heads, and the entire problem just quietly disappeared into thin air. Well, those problems just stopped disappearing because FIFA has finally done the exact thing they spent the entire tournament trying so hard to avoid. They put the accusations in writing on official letterhead in a language that you simply cannot walk back assault, not unsporting behavior, and certainly not some regrettable little incident. We are talking about actual assault charges against players from the very team FIFA has been accused of shielding all summer long. And once something becomes a formal charge, there is absolutely no deleting it. Let me walk you through exactly what has been filed in this case, why this drags in the entire Argentine Federation and ignites a decades-old war, and why this is the exact moment FIFA's long-running protection racket finally ran completely out of road. Let's start with the headline itself because it is genuinely stunning to see it stated this bluntly by the governing body of football. After a grueling, week-long investigation by an independent prosecutor into the absolute chaos that followed the final whistle, FIFA's own disciplinary committee has officially opened formal proceedings, and the charges are heavily stacked. Leandro Paredes is facing 3 separate counts of assault. Yes, 3. Nahuel Molina is facing 2 counts of assault, 1 fully completed and 1 attempted, along with an additional charge of unsporting behavior. Assistant coach Roberto Ayala faces 1 count of assault, while Thiago Almada is charged with unsporting behavior in a twist that absolutely nobody in the room expected. Spain's own young midfielder Gavi has also been charged with unsporting behavior, but make no mistake about where the true weight of this case sits. The actual assault charges leveled against Paredes, Molina, and Ayala are the ones that carry the real gravity here. And according to the guidelines in FIFA's own disciplinary code, a single charge of assault carries a minimum ban of at least 3 matches, with the door left wide open for much longer suspensions. If these heavy charges are upheld, we are looking at incredibly lengthy suspensions for a massive chunk of Argentina's core starting lineup. And you probably already know exactly what these charges describe because the viral footage has already traveled all around the planet. Paredes was the initial spark. He struck Spain's defender Eric Garcia right in the throat with an open hand, completely knocking him to the turf. Then he and Almada aggressively shoved Gavi to the turf. Meanwhile, video evidence appears to show Molina throwing a hard punch right into the midsection of Spain's captain Rodri as he ran past to celebrate. And keep in mind, Ayala is a prominent member of the coaching staff. He was caught on camera appearing to strike Danny Mo, a violent incident he later tried to downplay as nothing more than a simple push. That is 3 players and a coach. 3 counts, 2 counts, and 1 count. This is not just some internet vibe, an online petition, or a media hot take. This is an official, numbered charge sheet. Now, if you do the math on what those charges could actually mean, it gets incredibly brutal. A 3-match ban is just the bare minimum floor for a single assault charge. That is the absolute minimum punishment. Paredes is facing 3 separate individual counts. Just imagine stacking those together. When you factor in the massive aggravating circumstances of doing this, right after a World Cup final in front of the entire planet, you are looking at the exact kind of devastating suspension that could easily wipe out a huge slice of Argentina's next competitive campaign. This is definitely not some slap on the wrist. Molina, facing 2 assault counts plus an unsporting behavior charge, is in almost identical jeopardy, and seeing an actual coach charged with assault is genuinely rare air in this sport. Ayala is not some young player who simply lost his head in the raw heat and chaos of competition. He is part of the professional staff, and the staff are supposed to be the ones pulling people apart, not throwing hands in a brawl. Then, there is one highly specific detail in this document that should make absolutely everyone who followed this story pause for a second. Gavi, the Spanish midfielder, who was one of the players Paredes threw violently to the ground, one of the actual victims, has himself been charged with unsporting behavior. Just sit with that irony for a second. This is the very same Gavi who just a few weeks ago went public to say he did not think the Argentina players should face any suspensions at all, claiming it was just part of football's more aggressive side. He selflessly extended an olive branch to them, and now he finds himself named on the exact same charge sheet as the very men who aggressively manhandled him. Whatever else you might think about this situation, it clearly tells you that FIFA's prosecutor cast an incredibly wide net and was not simply hunting down the Argentines, which paradoxically makes the entire situation so much harder for FIFA to somehow wriggle out of because it looks like a legitimate legal process and not just a targeted witch hunt. Now, here is the one specific line that truly matters above all else. And it is the entire reason why this situation is completely different from everything we have seen before. Do you remember that vanishing red card? Right in the chaotic middle of that post-match brawl, FIFA's own live broadcast systems actually flashed up a red card for Paredes. But then, quietly and in real time, it was deleted, and absolutely no action was taken on the field. For weeks now, that suspicious little disappearing act has served as the absolute perfect symbol of how FIFA constantly handles anything involving Argentina. A major problem suddenly appears, and then poof, it is gone. But you simply cannot delete a formal, legally binding disciplinary proceeding. You cannot just quietly wave away an official document that FIFA itself published to the entire world. This particular charge sheet is firmly on the public record, and it is staying right there. In fact, FIFA's own official statement confirmed that the accused individuals have now been fully provided with the opportunity to present their own positions on the matter, after which the governing committee will make their final ruling. Simple translation, the legal machinery is officially running. It is completely out in the open now, and there is no hiding it this time. But the players are only half of the story. FIFA did not stop at that wild brawl, opening a second, much wider investigation targeting the Argentine Football Association itself. And this one is a total catalog. The federation now faces heavy proceedings for a wide spread of alleged breaches across multiple matches during the tournament, which includes turning a sporting event into a non-sporting political demonstration. Severe team misconduct, outright discrimination, and systemic racist abuse, and total failures of order and security. FIFA's official charge sheet explicitly references discriminatory chants, late kickoffs, and failing to comply with match and security protocols, inappropriate messages displayed by both players and fans, plus dangerous objects thrown by the spectators. Just read that list again. This is clearly not one bad night. This is FIFA formally alleging that Argentina's toxic behavior was a massive problem across the entire tournament, matching a very clear pattern. And the same issues millions of fans pointed out for weeks are now officially written into disciplinary proceedings. A federation-level case brings its own heavy danger because the blame does not just fall on one single player. It crushes the entire national organization and opens the floodgates to massive fines, heavy formal sanctions, and a permanent black mark against the AFA name inside FIFA's official historical records. The specific charges of discrimination and racist abuse are especially heavy. Those are easily among the charges that FIFA treats with the utmost seriousness. A global governing body that spent years branding itself as the enemy of discrimination simply cannot be seen shrugging them off. So the AFA is not just defending a banner, they are defending their reputation on 4 separate fronts all at once. But before we look at that banner, one more thread is worth pulling, because it feeds straight into the assault case. Ayala, the assistant coach charged over Elmo, did eventually apologize, sort of. He muttered that he was sorry, but immediately undercut his words by claiming it was just a shove rather than a punch, while blaming comments supposedly said to him. Mo was not having it. He publicly called Ayala's apology a total lie, pointing out he said nothing to provoke it, and that anyone who justifies a physical punch is not really sorry. So the single apology from Argentina's camp arrived preloaded with a cheap excuse and got thrown straight back. Now the very man who gave it is staring down a formal assault charge. Contrition, it turns out, works much better when it is not just an alibi. Right at the absolute center of that federation case is the banner. After Argentina beat England in their semi-final match in Atlanta, several players, with Giovanni Lo Celso and Nicolas Otamendi among them, grabbed a banner right out of the crowd, holding it high on the pitch during the wild celebrations before laying it flat across the grass. It read, Las Malvinas on Argentinas, which translates to, the Malvinas are Argentine, with Malvinas being the Argentine name for the Falkland Islands, a British territory in the South Atlantic that Argentina has claimed for a very long time. And here is the exact detail that makes this a FIFA matter, rather than just a basic political statement. FIFA and soccer's lawmakers have a clear standing rule that completely bans using any match to make political demonstrations, flags, slogans, and political symbols. They are absolutely prohibited. Full stop. So the moment that banner went up, it was no longer a question of whether you agree with the sentiment. It was a straightforward breach of a rule that every single player in that squad knew existed. I am going to stay completely neutral on the sovereignty question itself, because that is a deeply painful international dispute, not just some simple football take. What I will give you is the sober context. The Fallens have been under continuous British rule since the 1830s. Argentina disputes that, and in 1982, the two countries fought a 74-day war over the islands, in which more than 900 people died. 649 Argentine troops, 255 British, and 3 civilians. This is absolutely not a light subject for either nation, which is precisely why bringing it onto a World Cup pitch was always going to detonate. And detonate it did. A spokesperson for the United Kingdom Prime Minister responded pointedly, stating that while the World Cup might not be Britain's, those fallen islands definitely are. Meanwhile, the White House, acting through the head of its own World Cup task force, went the completely opposite way and defended the Argentine players on free speech grounds, invoking the First Amendment. So you had two major governments trading verbal shots over a bedsheet on a football field, which tells you precisely why FIFA's strict rule against political messaging exists in the very first place. Keep the wars off the pitch. And this is not even new ground for Argentina. Back in 2014, FIFA fined them £20,000 for holding up an even larger version of that exact same Fallen's banner before a friendly match against Slovenia. So they had been fined for this before. They knew the rule, and yet they still did it again on the biggest stage in the entire sport. That is the exact part that makes their heat-of-the-moment defense so much harder to sell. This was a calculated repeat, not some random one-off. So let's put both of these cases together and look at the full, staggering picture. Argentina now faces a historic crisis. 3 of their players and a coach are formally charged over a post-final brawl. 3 individuals face assault charges, and their federation is cited for a political demonstration, along with team misconduct, discrimination, racist abuse, and security failures in multiple matches. That is a massive mountain of disciplinary cases from just one World Cup, and this heavy blow lands on a squad that came within one single goal of becoming the first back-to-back champions since Brazil in 1962. The defending champions did not just lose the final, they turned their entire title defense into the most heavily controversial, charged campaign in recent memory. Which brings us directly to the part Joey and everyone watching at home actually wants me to say out loud. This is the moment where FIFA's long-standing protection of Argentina finally becomes completely impossible. Think about the broader arc of this entire tournament. The main accusation against FIFA was pure favoritism, that Argentina got the easy calls, got the ultimate benefit of the doubt, got the soft foul counts, and saw a red card magically materialize, then suddenly vanish. Then, right after the final, the president of FIFA himself sent Argentina a private letter praising their professionalism, even while his own prosecutor was actively building a heavy case against them. A leak so tone-deaf it immediately became its own scandal. Just sit with that bizarre sequence for a second. The actual head of world soccer, personally and warmly congratulating a squad on their fine professionalism at the exact moment those very players were about to face formal charges for physical assault. If these heavy charges actually land the way they are written, that personal letter immediately ages into one of the most deeply embarrassing documents in soccer history, because it means the president was actively praising the professionalism of men whom his own organization was actively preparing to prosecute for throwing punches, and the historical pattern of favoritism backed it all up. Following Qatar in 2022, Argentina faced charges over their wild celebrations, yet the entire penalty was a tiny fine of around $25,000, with no players suspended. Charge them, then barely graze them. That was always their classic playbook. But a playbook like that only works in the dark, and FIFA has just flipped the lights on itself. By formally launching these assault proceedings and publishing them openly, FIFA has completely boxed itself in. They cannot now quietly hand Paredes a small fine and move on, because the charge is actual assault. And assault carries a strict 3-match floor written right into their own code. They cannot pretend the Football Federation case does not exist, because they already listed all the articles publicly. In doing this, they have effectively forced their own hand. The very organization that spent an entire month finding highly creative ways to avoid disciplining its most marketable team has now generated a public paper trail that makes any future avoidance look like an outright cover-up. That is the ultimate trap. If you protect Argentina now, after putting all of this in writing, you do not just confirm every single favoritism theory. You set those theories in concrete. FIFA must act now, not because they want to, but because they have left themselves absolutely no exit. Now, to be fair, and this really matters, a formal charge is not a conviction, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. FIFA's own statement is highly explicit that every accused person has the right to present their case before any final ruling. Paredes, Molina, Ayala, and the AFA all have a clear right to argue their side of the story, and some of these charges may eventually soften or just fall away entirely. That is how basic due process works, and it applies even to players whose on-camera conduct you found completely disgraceful. It is also worth noting that Spain's Gavi was charged too, which completely cuts against any theory that this is just a purely anti-Argentine exercise. FIFA cast a wide net, and it caught a victim as well as the actual aggressors. Regarding that controversial banner, there is a human dimension you cannot ignore either. The Malas are deeply woven into Argentine identity and national grief in a way that is not cynical. To those players, it was not some marketing stunt. It was a genuine conviction. It definitely still broke the rules, but breaking a political messaging rule out of genuine national pride belongs in a completely different moral category from physically punching a man in the throat. Not every single item on this heavy charge sheet deserves the exact same weight, and a truly fair process should treat them differently. But here is where it lands, and it lands extremely hard. For the entire length of this tournament, the big question was whether FIFA would ever actually hold Argentina to the exact same standard as everyone else. We finally have the beginning of a real answer, and it is in writing. The big difference between this situation and every single prior controversy is permanence. A soft referee call gets forgotten. A vanished red card gets quickly memory holed. A warm, friendly letter easily gets denied. But a fully published charge of physical assault with a strict 3-match minimum penalty attached, sitting directly in front of a disciplinary committee that the entire world is now watching, simply cannot be smoothed over with a quick phone call or a warm personal note. FIFA built an entire tournament where they constantly kept bailing Argentina out. Then, Argentina's players did something on camera that FIFA's own rulebook classifies as actual assault, and their football federation allowed actions across the tournament that FIFA's own code defines as a political demonstration, a major security failure, and in certain places, downright racist abuse. And now, the global governing body has to make a public choice on the record. Either throw the book at the team they have been accused of protecting, or prove that favoritism accusation true forever. There is absolutely no way around it. FIFA is not coming out of this clean. If they actually punish Paredes, Molina, and Ayala the way they deserve, it is a direct admission that their behavior was truly that toxic. The very same behavior the FIFA president was applauding just days later. Go soft, issue tiny fines, and look away. And suddenly, every critic is handed the ultimate proof they were right. They spent the entire summer claiming Argentina gets special treatment. What began as a chaotic, post-match brawl at the final whistle has now snowballed into a massive, formal investigation targeting 3-star players, a coach, and the country's entire soccer federation. It is a scandal that has dragged FIFA's own credibility right into the mud alongside them. Argentina arrived to defend their crown. Instead, they are leaving with a long list of charges. FIFA wanted to celebrate the greatest show on earth, but now they face a decision where nobody wins. And for the first time all tournament, they cannot just sweep this massive mess under the rug. So here is the real question, and I want your absolute honest take on it. Once the official rulings finally drop, will FIFA actually throw the book at Argentina once and for all? Or will they find some creative way to protect them and completely expose themselves? Tell me in the comments which way you see this breaking. The very second the disciplinary committee hands down those official bans, I will break down every single suspension for you the moment it becomes official. Trust me, this wild story is far from over.